Ashley stood in the doorway, her arms crossed, looking at me with that familiar mix of annoyance and impatience. It wasn't an argument yet, but it was heading there. I could feel it. The air between us had been thick with tension for months, like a storm waiting to break. "Luke, let me be clear," she said, her tone clipped and icy. "I'm not your property. I don't need you hovering over me or telling me how to live my life." I didn't respond right away. What was there to say? We'd had this same conversation, or rather, she'd delivered this same speech so many times that I'd lost count. But this time, something inside me shifted. I wasn't angry, not yet, but I felt a deep, unsettling weight settle in my chest. "You know I'm not trying to control you, Ashley," I said quietly, careful to keep my voice even. "I just want to understand why it feels like I'm not even a part of your life anymore." She scoffed, a sharp, bitter sound that made me flinch. "Maybe that's the problem, Luke. You're always trying to understand. Sometimes people just need space, and you don't get that." Her words were dismissive, but her tone was venomous. I stared at her for a moment, searching for some trace of the woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. The woman who used to laugh with me until our sides hurt, who used to hold my hand as if it were the most natural thing in the world. But all I saw was a stranger, cold, detached, and brimming with contempt. That night, as I lay in bed alone, staring at the ceiling, her words echoed in my mind. "I'm not your property." It wasn't just the words themselves. It was the way she said them, like I was some oppressive force in her life, a chain she was desperate to break free from. But how had we gotten here? I wasn't perfect, I knew that, but I had always tried my best to be a good husband. I worked hard, made sacrifices, and always put her needs above my own. Wasn't that what love was supposed to be? The Ashley I knew would have appreciated that. She would have seen the effort, the love, the commitment. But this new version of her, the one who rolled her eyes when I spoke, who barely looked up from her phone when I walked into the room, didn't seem to care about any of that. It was as if she'd already decided that I was a burden, something holding her back from what? Freedom? Independence? A better life without me? The next morning, I woke up early, determined to try again. Maybe we just needed to talk, really talk, for the first time in months. But as I came downstairs, I found Ashley already dressed, her suitcase by the door. "Where are you going?" I asked, trying to keep the panic out of my voice. She didn't even glance at me as she adjusted her scarf. "I'm going to stay with a friend for a while. I need some space." Her words were casual, almost flippant, but they hit me like a slap to the face. "Space? Ashley, we live in the same house. If you need space, we can." "Luke, stop," she interrupted, finally turning to face me. Her expression was unreadable, but her eyes were cold. "I don't owe you an explanation. I'm not your property." With that, she picked up her suitcase and walked out the door, leaving me standing there in stunned silence. I didn't know it then, but that moment was the start of something much bigger, something that would change everything. For her, it was the beginning of her so-called independence. For me, it was the start of a fight I never saw coming, a fight for my dignity, my sanity, and the life I thought we had built together. The silence in the house after Ashley left was deafening. I stood in the doorway for what felt like hours, staring at the spot where her suitcase had been. My mind was racing with questions I couldn't answer. Where was she really going? Who was this friend she needed space with? And most importantly, how had we gotten to this point? Over the next few days, I tried to keep myself busy, hoping that when she came back, we could have an honest conversation. But as the hours turned into days, and the days stretched into a week, I realized something. Ashley wasn't coming back anytime soon. She didn't even bother to check in. No calls, no texts, nothing. I was a ghost in her world. Then, one evening, I got my first clue. It started innocently enough, a ping from her laptop, which she had carelessly left behind in her rush to leave. Normally, I wouldn't have snooped. Despite everything, I still respected her privacy. But something about the notification caught my attention. It was a message from a name I didn't recognize, Jake. The message was brief, but gut-wrenching. "Can't wait to see you again this weekend. Last time was unforgettable, winking-faced." My heart sank. I stared at the screen, trying to process what I was reading. My wife, the woman who had accused me of being overbearing and controlling, had apparently been finding comfort in someone else's arms while I was bending over backward to hold our marriage together. I felt a surge of anger and humiliation. How long had this been going on? And why didn't I see it sooner? My first instinct was to call her right then and there, demand answers, and confront her about Jake. But as I stared at the screen, another part of me held back. This wasn't just a random fling. Ashley had checked out of our marriage a long time ago. This was just the proof I'd been too blind to see. Instead of confronting her immediately, I decided to dig deeper. If she was going to lie to my face, I wanted to know exactly what she was lying about. Over the next few days, I went through her laptop, piecing together fragments of messages, emails, and photos. The more I uncovered, the clearer the picture became. Ashley and Jake had been seeing each other for months, maybe longer. Romantic dinners, weekend getaways, things she had once done with me, she was now doing with him. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal itself. It was the way she talked about me in their messages. He's so pathetic, always trying to fix things. I don't even know why I married him in the first place. And don't worry about Luke. He'll never stand up for himself. He's too much of a pushover. Reading her words felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I had always known Ashley could be sharp with her words, but to see her speak about me like this, like I was nothing, was devastating. I spent the next few nights lying awake, trying to figure out what to do. Part of me wanted to pack her things and throw them on the lawn, to call her and scream at her for everything she'd done. But another part of me, the quieter, more rational side, knew that wasn't the answer. Ashley didn't respect me because I had let her walk all over me for years. If I wanted to take back control of my life, I had to be smarter than that. I decided to play the long game. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I didn't tell him everything, just enough to get the ball rolling. I wanted to know my options, how to protect myself if Ashley decided to take things further. The lawyer, a sharp man named David, didn't pull any punches. If she's cheating and planning to leave you, you need to act quickly, he said. Gather evidence, secure your assets, and prepare for a fight. Don't let her take advantage of you. His words stuck with me. For the first time in years, I felt a spark of determination. I wasn't going to let Ashley destroy me. If she wanted a new life, fine, but she wasn't going to do it at my expense. The turning point came 2 weeks after she left. I was sitting in the living room when I heard a knock at the door. When I opened it, there she was, Ashley, standing there like nothing had happened. She was dressed to the nines, her makeup flawless, her hair perfectly styled. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. I need to grab a few things, she said casually, brushing past me without waiting for an invitation. I watched as she moved through the house, collecting her belongings like a stranger in a hotel. She didn't ask how I was doing or offer any explanation for her absence. It was as if I didn't even exist. But I stayed calm, even as my anger simmered beneath the surface. Before she left, she turned to me with that same cold smile. By the way, I'll need the car this weekend. Jake and I. She stopped herself, but it was too late. The damage was done. Jake, I repeated, my voice eerily calm. Your friend Jake? Her smile faltered for a moment, but she quickly recovered. What I do with my time is none of your business, Luke. Remember, I'm not your property. And just like that, she walked out the door, leaving me standing there with a mix of rage and resolve. If Ashley thought she could walk all over me forever, she was in for a rude awakening. This wasn't just a battle for my marriage anymore. It was a battle for my dignity, and I wasn't about to lose. Ashley's words echoed in my mind long after she left that day. I'm not your property. She said it with such arrogance, as if she'd already won some unspoken war between us. The way she casually mentioned Jake, like I was too weak to even react, only fueled the fire burning inside me. She didn't respect me, but worse than that, she didn't even see me as a threat. That needed to change. I knew this wasn't going to be a quick fight. Ashley had spent years building her version of independence, cutting me out piece by piece until I was just a shadow in her life. But if she thought she could flaunt her betrayal and leave me in ruins, she had underestimated me. I wasn't going to scream or beg. No, I was going to hit her where it hurt the most, her pride. The first step was securing my finances. Ashley didn't know it, but I'd been saving a significant portion of my income in a separate account for years. It wasn't much at first, just a small safety net in case of emergencies, but over time, it grew into something substantial. She always handled the household finances and assumed I was clueless, but I had been paying attention. I knew exactly how much was in our joint accounts and how much she spent on herself. Designer clothes, luxury spa treatments, fancy dinners. Ashley liked to live large, and I was the one footing the bill. Not anymore. I met with David, my lawyer, and laid everything out on the table. The cheating, the messages I found, her casual mention of Jake. He took it all in with a grim expression. "You've got a strong case for infidelity," he said. "But we need more evidence if you want to protect yourself in court. Start documenting everything. Messages, photos, anything that proves her behavior." So that's what I did. Every time Ashley came by to grab something or borrow the car, I kept my cool and stayed observant. She was careless, leaving her phone unlocked on the kitchen counter or casually mentioning her plans with Jake when she thought I wasn't listening. It didn't take long for me to gather a treasure trove of evidence. Screenshots of text messages, photos of her with him, even receipts from their outings. The more I uncovered, the more determined I became. But I wasn't just planning to fight her in court. No, that was only part of the plan. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand that her so-called independence came with consequences. If she wanted to live a life free of me, she was going to get exactly what she asked for, just not in the way she expected. A few weeks later, Ashley showed up again, this time with a smug smile plastered on her face. "I'm here for the rest of my things," she announced, brushing past me without so much as a greeting. I watched as she flitted from room to room, picking out what she deemed valuable and ignoring everything else. It was clear she didn't intend to come back after this. She was done playing house, ready to move on to her new life with Jake. But what she didn't realize was that I had already set the stage for her exit. As she loaded the last of her things into her car, she turned to me with that same condescending smile. "You'll be fine, Luke," she said, as if she were doing me a favor by leaving. "This is what's best for both of us." I didn't respond. Instead, I handed her a plain white envelope. "What's this?" she asked, eyeing it suspiciously. "Open it," I said simply. She tore it open and pulled out a stack of papers. Her eyes darted across the page, and for the first time in weeks, I saw her mask crack. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, her voice rising. "It's a separation agreement," I replied calmly. "I thought it would save us both time if we started dividing things now." Her face turned red with anger. "You think you can just push me out like this?" "I'm not signing anything, Luke." I shrugged, unfazed by her outburst. "That's your choice, Ashley. But just so you know, I've already filed for divorce. This is just a formality." She stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't find the words. For the first time, she seemed genuinely caught off guard. It was a small victory, but it was enough to fuel me for the battles ahead. As she stormed off, slamming the door behind her, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, anger, sadness. It was all there, tangled up in a knot I couldn't untie. But one thing was clear: this wasn't over. Ashley thought she could humiliate me, use me, and walk away unscathed. But she was wrong. This was only the beginning, and I was just getting started. Little did she know, her so-called independence was about to turn into the isolation she had never anticipated. The door slammed shut behind Ashley, and I stood there, staring at the empty space where she had just been. Her outrage over the separation papers gave me a fleeting sense of satisfaction, but it didn't last long. This wasn't about one small victory. It was about dismantling the illusion she had built around herself. For years, she had treated me like an afterthought, assuming I'd always be there, her reliable safety net. But that safety net was gone now, and she was about to realize just how fragile her independence really was. A week passed without a word from her. I used the time to finalize the financial moves I'd started, closing our joint accounts, securing my savings, and preparing for the next steps in the divorce. It wasn't easy, and part of me still felt guilty, like I was being too harsh. But every time I thought about her with Jake, laughing at my expense, the guilt was replaced with determination. She wanted to be free of me. Fine, but she wouldn't get to walk away without consequences. Then, late one night, my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ashley. "We need to talk." I stared at the screen, debating whether to respond. Finally, I typed back, "What is there to talk about?" Her reply came almost immediately. "You're being unreasonable, Luke. I just want to make this transition smooth for both of us." Smooth. The audacity of it made me laugh out loud. She wanted smooth when she had been the one to rip apart our marriage without a second thought. I didn't reply. Let her sit with the silence for once. The next day, she showed up unannounced, looking more frazzled than I'd ever seen her. Her hair was disheveled, and there was a tightness around her eyes that hadn't been there before. It was clear she wasn't sleeping well. "What do you want, Ashley?" I asked, keeping my tone neutral. She crossed her arms, her usual confidence wavering. "You can't just cut me off, Luke. I have expenses, bills, commitments. You can't expect me to manage everything on my own." I raised an eyebrow. "Isn't that what you wanted? Independence? Freedom from me?" Her face hardened. "Don't twist my words. I didn't mean I wanted to be financially stranded." I couldn't help but smirk. "Well, maybe Jake can help with that. You seem to have plenty of commitments with him." Her expression shifted, a flicker of panic crossing her face before she quickly masked it. "This isn't about Jake," she snapped. "This is about what's fair." "Fair?" I repeated, my voice rising slightly. "You want to talk about fair? You humiliated me, cheated on me, and now you're here demanding support? You made your bed, Ashley. Now lie in it." She opened her mouth to argue, but no words came out. For the first time, she seemed truly speechless. Without another word, she turned and left, slamming the door behind her. As I watched her walk away, I felt a strange sense of closure. For years, I had bent over backward to make her happy, to meet her impossible standards. But now, for the first time, I was standing my ground, and it felt damn good. This wasn't just a fight for my dignity anymore. It was a fight to reclaim my life, and I was ready for whatever came next. A week passed after Ashley's unexpected visit, and the silence was almost unnerving. I half expected her to storm back in, demanding more, accusing me of being the unreasonable one. But there was nothing. No calls, no texts, no unannounced appearances. Part of me hoped she had finally realized that her control over me was gone, but another part knew better. Ashley wasn't the kind of woman to back down. This was just the calm before the storm. Then it happened. It was a Friday evening, and I had just settled down with a beer, trying to enjoy a rare moment of peace. My phone buzzed on the coffee table, and I hesitated before picking it up. It was a message from one of Ashley's friends, someone I barely knew. "Hey Luke, I thought you should see this." Attached was a photo of Ashley and Jake sitting together at a fancy restaurant. Her arm was draped over his shoulder, and they were both grinning like they didn't have a care in the world. But that wasn't what caught my attention. It was the caption underneath. "Cheers to freedom and new beginnings." Freedom. That word again. It was like a dagger to the heart, twisting with every smug syllable. I clenched my fists, the rage bubbling just beneath the surface. She had moved on so easily, flaunting her betrayal like it was some kind of triumph. But I wasn't going to let her have the last laugh. I spent the rest of the evening strategizing. If Ashley thought she could humiliate me without consequences, she was in for a rude awakening. I didn't care about revenge for revenge's sake. I cared about making sure she couldn't walk away from this unscathed. The next morning, I called David, my lawyer, and filled him in on everything. The evidence I had collected, the photo from her friend, even the flippant comments she made about Jake during her last visit. David listened intently, then said, "Luke, you're in a strong position here. The courts don't look kindly on infidelity, especially when it's this blatant. If you want to push for an advantageous settlement, now's the time." I agreed. It was time to put the wheels in motion. But Ashley wasn't done playing games. That evening, she showed up at the house again, this time with a completely different demeanor. Gone was the confident, self-assured woman I had seen before. She looked tired, almost defeated. But I knew better than to trust appearances. Ashley was a master manipulator, and this was just another tactic. "Luke," she said softly, standing in the doorway, "can we talk?" I crossed my arms, leaning against the wall. "About what?" She hesitated, her gaze darting around the room as if searching for the right words. "About us. About everything that's happened." I raised an eyebrow. "Us? There is no us, Ashley. You made that pretty clear when you left." Her face fell, and for a moment, I thought I saw genuine regret. But then she spoke again, and any sympathy I might have felt vanished. "I think we've both made mistakes," she said, her tone carefully measured. "But this doesn't have to end like this. We can still be civil." "Civil?" I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "You want to be civil after everything you've done? After flaunting Jake in my face, mocking me behind my back, and walking out like I meant nothing?" She flinched at my words, but quickly recovered. "I'm trying to meet you halfway here, Luke. You don't have to make this harder than it needs to be." I laughed, a bitter sound that echoed through the room. "Halfway? Ashley, The only halfway you're interested in is halfway to Jake's place. Her mask cracked then, the cool facade giving way to anger. Fine, she snapped. If you want to be a child about this, go ahead. But don't think you can just cut me out like I never existed. I have rights too, and I'm not afraid to fight for them. The threat hung in the air between us, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I met her gaze head-on, letting her see the resolve in my eyes. Do what you need to do, Ashley. But don't forget, you're the one who walked away. And you're the one who's going to have to live with the consequences. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, and I let out a shaky breath. The battle lines were drawn, and I knew the fight was far from over. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was standing on solid ground. Ashley might have felt she held all the power, but she was about to learn just how wrong she was. This wasn't just about a failed marriage anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, and I wasn't going to let her take that away from me. The next morning, I woke up to find a string of texts from Ashley. At first, I thought she was trying to apologize or make amends, but I should have known better. Instead, her messages were filled with accusations, blaming me for ruining her life. You're petty and vindictive, Luke. I can't believe you're trying to paint me as the bad guy. If you keep this up, you'll regret it. The irony of her words nearly made me laugh. Me, ruining her life? She was the one who tore everything apart, who chose to cheat and flaunt it like it was a badge of honor. If she thought she could bully me into submission, she was in for a rude awakening. By now, the divorce process was in full swing, and my lawyer, David, was proving to be worth every penny. He guided me through every step, ensuring I was prepared for anything Ashley might throw my way. But it wasn't just about the legal battle anymore. I had realized something important. Ashley's independence wasn't as solid as she wanted everyone to believe. Beneath her facade of confidence and self-sufficiency was a woman who thrived on control, and now, for the first time, she was losing it. The cracks in her armor became more evident with each passing day. She started sending emails instead of texts, carefully crafted messages that sounded almost professional. She was trying to play the victim now, painting herself as the reasonable one while subtly trying to manipulate me into backing down. Luke, I understand that things have been difficult for both of us, but we need to find a way to resolve this amicably. I don't want things to get ugly. It was laughable. Ashley was trying to cover her tracks, to rewrite the narrative into something that made her look like the wronged party. But I wasn't buying it. I kept every email, every message, documenting everything as David had advised. This wasn't just a battle, it was a chess game, and I was finally learning how to play. But then something happened that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I received a call from one of Ashley's friends, the same one who had sent me the photo of her and Jake. Her voice was hesitant, almost nervous. Luke, I don't know if I should be telling you this, but I think you deserve to know. Know what? I asked, my stomach tightening. She hesitated before saying, Ashley's been having problems with Jake. He's not who she thought he was. That caught me off guard. What kind of problems? There was a pause, and then she said, let's just say her new beginning isn't going as smoothly as she expected. He's been seeing other people, and Ashley isn't handling it well. I hung up the phone, a mix of emotions swirling inside me. Part of me felt vindicated. Ashley had thrown away everything we had for this guy, and now he was treating her the same way she had treated me. But another part of me felt nothing. I didn't care about her problems with Jake. She had made her choice, and now she was reaping the consequences. Later that evening, as I sat in the quiet of the house, I realized something important. For years, Ashley had made me feel small, insignificant. She had belittled me, dismissed me, and made me question my worth. But now, for the first time, I felt free. Free from her manipulation, her control, her endless demands. This wasn't just about winning a legal battle or getting the upper hand. This was about reclaiming my life, my sense of self. Ashley could live with her choices, and I would live with mine, stronger, wiser, and ready to move forward. The next time she showed up at the house, I was ready for her. She looked disheveled, her usual confidence replaced by something I hadn't seen before, desperation. She tried to act like everything was fine, but I could see through her. She was unraveling, and she knew it. Luke, she started, her voice softer than usual. Can we talk? I crossed my arms, leaning against the doorframe. What do you want, Ashley? She hesitated, her eyes darting around like she was searching for the right words. I think we should slow things down. Maybe we're rushing this whole divorce thing. I almost laughed. Rushing? You've been rushing away from this marriage for months, Ashley. Now you want to slow down. Her face tightened. I just think we should reconsider, for the sake of everything we've built. I stepped closer, meeting her gaze. Everything we've built? You mean the marriage you tore apart? The trust you destroyed? Or are you talking about the life you threw away for Jake? She flinched, and for the first time, I saw genuine fear in her eyes. Luke, please. No, Ashley, I cut her off. You made your choice, and now you get to live with it. I'm done playing your games. She stood there, frozen, as I shut the door in her face. For the first time in years, I felt a sense of control, of power. Ashley had always thought she held all the cards, but now the deck was in my hands, and I wasn't going to let her take that from me. The battle wasn't over yet, but for the first time, I knew I was going to win. Days turned into weeks, and the silence from Ashley was deafening. After her last desperate attempt to slow the divorce, I expected her to come back swinging, armed with manipulative arguments and self-righteous anger. But nothing came. No calls, no texts, no surprise visits. It was almost unsettling. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from David, my lawyer. His voice was calm, but carried an undertone of intrigue. Luke, he said, I thought you'd like to know that Ashley's attorney reached out. She's dropped most of her demands. I nearly dropped the phone. What? Why would she do that? She's scrambling, David replied. It sounds like her financial situation has taken a hit, and she's not in a position to fight anymore. Whatever's going on in her life, it's working in your favor. Stay the course, and we'll wrap this up on your terms. Hanging up, I felt a strange mix of triumph and pity. Ashley had spent years treating me like a stepping stone, using me to prop up her image of independence and superiority. Now that image was crumbling, and she was paying the price. A few days later, the truth behind her sudden capitulation came to light. A mutual acquaintance called me, someone who had always been more Ashley's friend than mine, but clearly enjoyed a bit of gossip. You won't believe what's happened, she said, barely able to contain her excitement. It turned out Jake had moved on to someone younger, flashier, and completely uninterested in Ashley's drama. He had dumped her unceremoniously, leaving her to pick up the pieces of her so-called new beginning. Worse still, word had gotten around about their affair, and Ashley's social circle was turning on her. The woman who had once thrived on appearances was now the subject of whispered conversations and judgmental glances. I should have felt vindicated, but all I felt was emptiness. Ashley had built this life for herself brick by brick, and now it was collapsing. It wasn't my victory, it was her defeat. The final blow came when she showed up at my house one last time. She looked nothing like the confident, put-together woman I had once known. Her hair was unkempt, her clothes wrinkled, and there was a hollow look in her eyes that made me pause. Luke, she said, her voice trembling. I don't know where else to go. I leaned against the doorframe, crossing my arms. What do you want, Ashley? She hesitated, her hands fidgeting nervously. I need help, just until I get back on my feet. I stared at her, letting the weight of her words sink in. This was the same woman who had told me she didn't owe me anything, who had mocked my efforts to hold our marriage together, who had flaunted her betrayal without a second thought. And now she was here, asking for my help. I'm sorry, I said, my voice calm but firm. I can't do that. Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought she might argue. But instead, she nodded slowly, her shoulders slumping in defeat. Without another word, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing in the doorway. As I watched her go, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't expected. This wasn't about revenge or getting even. It was about finally letting go. Ashley had made her choices, and now she was living with the consequences. And for the first time in years, I felt free. Free to rebuild my life. Free to find happiness on my own terms. Free from the weight of a marriage that had long since stopped being a partnership. The battle was over, and I had won, not by breaking her down, but by refusing to let her break me. After Ashley's final visit, the silence that followed was different. It wasn't the uncomfortable, tense silence of waiting for the next argument or manipulation. It was peaceful, like standing in the middle of a quiet field after a storm. The air was still, the chaos gone, and for the first time in what felt like years, I could finally breathe. The divorce was finalized within a month, thanks to the mountain of evidence I had gathered and Ashley's crumbling position. The settlement was straightforward. She walked away with less than she had expected and none of the power she thought she held. David congratulated me on how smoothly things had gone, but all I could feel was a quiet sense of relief. The fight was over, or so I thought. One evening, about a month after the papers were signed, I received a letter in the mail. At first, I assumed it was some leftover legal paperwork, but when I opened it, I realized it was from Ashley. Her handwriting, once neat and confident, was messy, almost frantic. "Luke, I don't know how to start this, but I need to tell you everything. I was wrong about so much, and I see that now. I thought I could build a better life without you, but I was a fool. Jake left me. My so-called friends abandoned me, and now I'm alone. You were the only one who ever truly cared about me, and I threw it all away. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need you to know that I regret everything. I'm sorry for what I did to you, and I hope one day you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Ashley." I stared at the letter for a long time, my emotions swirling: regret, sadness, anger. A part of me wanted to call her, to demand answers, to ask why she couldn't see all of this before destroying our marriage. But another part of me, perhaps the wiser part, knew that nothing she said could change what had happened. Her apology, while sincere, was too late. I folded the letter and tucked it away in a drawer, not out of sentimentality, but as a reminder of how far I had come, of the battles I had fought and won. Ashley's words no longer held power over me. I was free. Over the next few months, I focused on rebuilding my life. I reconnected with old friends, started hitting the gym, and even picked up a new hobby: woodworking, something I had always wanted to try but never had time for. It was therapeutic, shaping something with my hands, turning raw materials into something useful and beautiful. It felt symbolic, like I was rebuilding myself piece by piece. I also started therapy, something I had resisted for a long time. At first, it was uncomfortable, talking about the pain and betrayal, reliving the darkest moments of my marriage. But over time, it helped me understand myself better. I wasn't perfect, and I had made mistakes in my relationship with Ashley, but I also learned that her choices were hers alone, and I didn't have to carry the weight of her actions anymore. Then, one day, I met someone new. Her name was Emily, and she was everything Ashley wasn't: kind, genuine, and full of warmth. We met at a local community event where I had volunteered to build benches for a park. She struck up a conversation, admiring my work, and before I knew it, we were laughing and talking like old friends. I didn't rush into anything. I was cautious, careful not to repeat the mistakes of the past. But Emily was patient, understanding my hesitation and never pressuring me. She reminded me that love didn't have to be a battle or a burden. It could be simple, joyful, and healing. Looking back now, I realized that Ashley's departure was the best thing that could have happened to me. It forced me to confront my own insecurities, to stand up for myself, and to rediscover who I was outside of our toxic marriage. Her independence may have turned into isolation, but mine became a path to freedom and growth. As for Ashley, I haven't heard from her since that letter. I hope she's found some semblance of peace in her life, but I've stopped wondering about her or her choices. My focus is on my future now, one I'm building with my own two hands, free from the shadows of the past. This is my life, my story, and for the first time in years, it feels like mine again.